And a happy Friday. Welcome to Red Sox Now, all presented by FanArch here on YouTube. I'm actually glad we've turned the page to August 1st and that the trade deadline is over. Certainly entertaining, some unbelievable trades. Of course, we'll get to all this stuff for the Red Sox as we'll talk about this as they continue. It feels like that day off was forever, but they'll continue their second half. The second half to me, and I think I said this yesterday, I don't go with after the All-Star break. The second half is after game 81, right? 162 divided by 2 is 81. There's 52 games left. We'll get to what I think is my goal and some of the root of issues. We'll get to your comments. But again, it's finally over. Let's go over some things, though, that I talked about. Getting uncomfortable. You got to get uncomfortable. I mentioned this in a lot of videos. The Padres got uncomfortable. Teams liking your players. There's this thing out here where fans try to match up a deal and say, oh, we could have had that if we had given up. No. Doesn't work that way. Ben Cherington said yesterday they were offered players that were higher ranked. But they don't do that. They take the players they like. You have to understand that. I've been in this game for a while to know how scouts think and how organizations think. They do not open up the MLB prospect book. I will let you in on a little secret, too, that a scout told me years ago. In the Baseball America Top 30 book, each organization put 2 dummy prospects in there to see if their scouts could figure out which ones were not real. There's a lot of games played with prospects where people think they're prospects and they're not, and they do things on purpose so that they try to hide guys. The Red Sox tried to do that with Lars Anderson and Anthony Rizzo. Anderson was the guy. Rizzo was the one that every team wanted. Every scout used to come into Hadlock Field in Portland and say, well, that Rizzo kid's really good. I know he's not a prospect, but we like him. And ultimately, who had the better career? It was interesting. I will say this. Aren't you glad you signed a closer? That was a move that a lot of fans didn't like, I think, because they didn't like Chapman personally, which I get. But that was one thing the Red Sox really did correctly in the offseason was sign that, because that was the position that teams went bonkers for and gave up a lot for. But I don't have an issue with it. Matt Manning's a top 100 prospect. Former. He just got traded to the Phillies, and he's an A-ball. A lot of these guys won't work out. I know everyone's upset. I get it. I wanted more too. But I do want to pose this to a lot of, Red Sox, and I don't want to speak for all of you, but I usually get a sense of how you're feeling from X. And make sure to follow me there, by the way, at the Radio Mike. And subscribe to the channel and like and comment. We'll get to your comments on Monday. This is the final show of the week. But I get a pulse of what Red Sox fans are like through the comments, through a lot of engagement on TikTok, and on what I saw, though, leading up to the trade line was a lot of no, I don't want to. Yesterday, I got a trade proposal sent to me. All right? And many people said I was nuts. Ketel Marte and Merrill Kelly to the Red Sox. You give up Meyer, Casas, David Sandlin, Franklin Arias, Luis Perales, and Garcia. Everyone said I was crazy. No way would I ever do that. Marte's old. Who cares? If you got those 2 guys for that, people would have been mad. Marte, I don't care he's 32. He's a stud. He's still a stud. He's in the middle of your lineup. He bats behind Duran. And that's one of the best 4. Anthony, Bregman, Duran, Marte. That is really good. Elite for 2 guys on the injured list and a bunch of maybes. And, yeah, all those guys could pan out. But for this year, I saw a lot more no's from a lot of people. Nope, not Peyton Toley. He's untouchable. We're not trading him. He is off the table. Okay, so what were we expecting then for the side of you that didn't want to trade anybody. You didn't want to give up any of the pitchers. You didn't want to trade Duran. You didn't want to trade Rafaela or Abreu. So what kind of moves did you think were going to happen, though? And I'm not giving the Red Sox a get-out-of-jail card. I'm just asking because I saw this everywhere. I saw tons, and you could search Peyton Tolley on X and see how many people said, no, we're not trading him. He is absolutely off the table. There's a reason those other two kids weren't moved up to Worcester earlier, Sandlin and Early. When guys don't get moved up, sometimes it's they're hiding them. And they want their value to stay at a certain level. And we'll see if they actually play a part. But there was a lot of no's this year. A lot. Nope, I don't want to get rid of this guy. I don't want to get rid of this guy. So if you are comfortable with that, what were your expectations? You can't land Joe Ryan without giving up someone off your roster. And there's tons of different reports. Now, Jen McCaffrey, who I definitely respect, I know Jen. She says, now, a lot of what Breslow was saying in his press conference yesterday was that teams didn't like their players. You know, he said they have to like our players, which I talked about and exhausted that point over and over and over. We couldn't go into with this untouchables, said Breslow. We didn't. We were willing to talk about all of our guys. All of them, even Tolley. But the current roster, no. Now, I would have been okay trading Abreu, to be honest. I told you I wouldn't trade Duran. But then I think about it. If you traded Abreu, and Garcia, what would you do in the outfield? He would leave you, but for Joe Ryan. So there were things I don't think matched up, but I would be willing to give up anyone. Now, Jen said it was Garcia was in the mix, but despite Boston's highly regarded farm system, sources said the rest of the haul offered was not substantial enough to land Ryan. So what does that mean? 25-man roster guys, probably. So would you have done that to get Ryan? Would you have put Duran? Would you have put Rafaela with Garcia and all the prospects? If you say yes, then I understand your anger. If you say no, then you can still be angry. Could they have figured it out another way? We don't know. That's the thing. We don't know. There's a lot of reports everywhere that they didn't go hard enough, and that's probably true to some degree, but we don't know. And I've tried to tell people you have to understand, and listen, I'm being hard on the Red Sox here, that your prospects might not be good. It doesn't matter what MLB Pipeline says. Each organization's prospects don't match up. The top 5 in Boston's could be 25 through 30 in Seattle, or they could be not ranked. I've seen that before. George Kataris was traded to the Red Sox for the David Wells deal. At the time, he was not even a prospect for the Padres. He was number 2 in our system. So in the end, my opinion, no, I was not happy. Dustin May is better than Richard Fitz. I like that for your 5 because you're only going to have him for a few starts. I don't agree with the that account trade values that puts Tibbs at a $9.1 million value. That doesn't even make any sense. The guy's in Double-A, he's not hitting. You can't put a value on a player that is in the minor leagues. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. So it's not an overpay to get Dustin May. That's crazy. It's 2 outfielders, essentially, that are never playing for you. It's an overpay if you give up a position that you don't have. But it's not an overpay to get a big league guy who has good stuff. Now, I wanted to see, when Fox screwed up, I was hoping for Joe. If Joe Ryan deal was made and you put May in the bullpen, oh, man. I could have been okay with not getting the first baseman. But I'm disappointed in that because I don't believe in Toro for the rest of the year. I think in the playoffs, you want someone better. And I don't know if Yandy is hurt beyond what people are saying. I would have liked Willie Castro. I thought that was a good piece. Matz is fine, you know. I mean, it's a reliever. I like the veteran guy in May to fill fits. But I'm not trying to say anything to get on people. I'm just saying there were a lot of no's this year on people. I don't want to trade Jarren Duran, but most of you said no. With doesn't matter who is in the package. That's fine. You got to live with that. If you don't want any of those guys moved, then you got to live with maybe not making a big deal. You know, I thought the Phillies was very interesting what Dave Dombrowski did. Dave said no to a lot of guys this year, which was interesting to me. He wouldn't trade Crawford. He wouldn't trade this guy Keaton Anthony. Another player, Rincones Jr. He's got Crawford, Carl's son, who's one of the top prospects in the game. But they made two moves. They got Duran and Harrison Bader, but they could have been in on Joe Ryan. I wonder if they were. Now, I thought that was interesting for Dave. I'm not knocking him because his team's good. But what does that tell you about his players? Dave comes from a player development background, by the way. He said no to Andrew Painter, and he meant it this year. I was surprised. And once he pitched against us a few days ago, I'm like, okay, he is, and his numbers aren't great, but he has said no, absolutely 100%. It was interesting that he was that defiant about that this year. And we're playing Lehigh Valley. I know some Phillies people anyways, and I talked to some of them and some of their broadcasters, and they said these guys he's got right now in AAA, he's putting his foot down. He really thinks they can contribute. I thought that was interesting. I thought, without a doubt, because they got three really good position players in AAA, I thought at least one of them would be gone. I thought they would swoop in and get Joe Ryan. And not many teams got starters. But yeah, I mean, I put the deadline as a disappointment. Yeah. Disappointment. I wanted to see more. I really wanted to see Joe Ryan. And I don't know. We don't know. It's too bad. I wish we knew. But no one got him. And no one got a lot of starters and some of the players we wanted. I didn't think Baltimore was going to trade with you. I didn't think Tampa was going to trade with you. I really didn't. But underwhelming and disappointing. But I'm not giving up as, I'm a true fan. Like, I'm not giving up on the season. I'm not going to go, it's just, I love baseball beyond belief. I love the Red Sox beyond belief. I watch other games. So I am still, hey, all right, let's see what you can do now. I'm not going to give up. Not going to, if you stop watching games, then that's you're not a fan, and that's fine. You don't have to be. You don't have to watch anymore. If it bothers people that much, I wouldn't do it. Honestly, I wouldn't let anything get to me. This doesn't get to me. Like, I didn't lose sleep last night over this. It's a game. Like, it's fun. It's supposed to be fun. And we'll see what they do now. That the ball's in their court. They were unwilling to trade anyone off their major league roster, just to sum this up. No one off their major league roster. I'm sure a lot of teams, sure the Twins said no chance. There's no way you're getting Joe Ryan without giving up someone off that roster. There's no way. It makes no sense for them to do that. And don't give me that the Twins traded Ryan's different. Completely different. Here's the root, though, to all the problems with the Red Sox. Since I've been in the system since 2005, I can name you three players that have been in three impact pitchers they've developed. Lester, Buchholz, and Bayo. Starting pitchers. That's it. It's 2025. That can't continue to happen. Why does Seattle make the moves they made? And speaking of saying no, we all said, all of Red Sox social media said no to a Tristan Casas for Luis Castillo move in the offseason, which is crazy that you wouldn't trade a first baseman for a legit starter. Seattle has Gilbert, Castillo, Wu, Kirby, Evans, and Bryce Miller on the injured list. That is a better six than you're going to roll out any day of the week. The Red Sox don't have starting pitching like that. That enabled them to go out and do what they did. This has got to get better. The starting pitching in the system has been an absolute failure for 20 plus years. John Lester was a Dan Duquette draft pick. Theo, through all the general managers. Now, to get elite arms, you have to draft high. But the Yankees don't always draft high. And they run circles around you with pitching. It all comes down to this in the end. You don't have enough. And going back to that, the Dobbins and Meyer injury, and I talked about this, I said with leverage, that will kill your leverage. Because you really couldn't, and I think they would have entertained trading someone off their 25 if Meyer was still healthy. You can't now, or maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't have made any sense. And I wouldn't want them to trade Duran for Joe Ryan, to be honest, and prospects, because that would really weaken your team. It's an interesting dynamic. J.P. Ricciardi last night said he would have done it in a minute. I think if the offense was much better, like elite, yeah, trade someone off that. But if you traded Duran and Garcia and whoever else, and you had just one injury, you're putting Yoshida in the outfield. Like, it's not. So those injuries hurt, but the pitching in the system has got to get better. It has to. You cannot continue to have no starting pitching. Look at what a difference Bayo made. Look what a difference Lester made. Because look what it cost you. You had to trade 4 year chips for Crochet, which is fine. You probably would have done that anyways. But you got to try to find it internally. And I don't think they've been good at that. The Priester deal still made no sense. But that is an issue that they got to get better. So this is my goal. And maybe we see, by the way, Tyler Uberstein is a guy to look out for. I think he might start tonight. He's been one of our best starters in Worcester. Harrison and Sandlin are starting for Worcester. They've been announced in the doubleheader. The Red Sox are TBA coming out of this deadline, which I do not like having if they have a bullpen game tonight against the Astros. But I think it could be Uberstein. But if the Sox go 31-21 to end the season, they'll have 90 wins. Would you have picked them to have 90 wins? I don't think people picked them to have 90 wins. I think the over-under might have been 85.5, but this is what they need to do. And now, without doing a lot of great things, the ball's in their court, like I said. So let's see what happens. Let's see what they do to this. Does Garcia play in the big leagues? Does Campbell get back there? Does Connolly early and Sandlin and Tolley make an impact? We'll see. Does Fitz go back up as a reliever? Let's see what they do from here. Absolutely agree with everyone's opinion to be absolutely pissed off. I get it. This does not go over well with fans. I didn't like the moves either. I mean, I didn't mind May and Matz. I wanted more. I wanted to be uncomfortable, like I said a couple days ago in the show, and they didn't. And whether that was what Breslow said, which I said to you guys and gals many times, that teams don't always like your players. I did text a few scouts to ask them about Sandlin, Tolley, and Early. I haven't heard back. I did AL, NL. I want to see what they say because those reports go to the big league team. So, nobody got a lot of starting pitching, and the Twins, I have to imagine, wanted a ton. But would you have done it? Would you have done it? A 25-man guy off your team and 4 or 5 prospects for Joe Ryan. Some will say yes, some will say no. All right, let's get to your comments. They were outstanding. At JP2421, Matt's is a good pickup. Blaze was the 19 prospect. He was blocked from the big club, so I don't hate the move. I can't believe that Mason Miller. Yeah, that's life, man. You don't have a closer. They traded a top 5 prospect in baseball. They got uncomfortable. Yeah, the Padres don't care. They don't care. And their fans don't care either. They don't say no to a lot of prospects. At Peter Garcia, 66.45. In reality, Jordan was blocked, and at least they got something from him. However, this can't be the only move. A starting pitcher and a first baseman is still needed. Have no idea whether it's going to happen. We can only hope. Well, we got 2 of the 3. I like Dustin May's stuff, though. Not having a great year. He's had a couple of starts where he's given up a ton of runs, but for the 5th starter, because, Buehler is there. I don't love that, but he's way better than Fitz. At Jeff A. Fortune 9519, I don't know how this season will turn out, but after the last couple of years playing meaningful baseball in September and hopefully October's progress, I think they add a starting pitcher. I wanted to do this after because this is interesting, because I have doubts about Buehler and Fitz, and I think they need to be ready to replace at least one of those guys. I'm believing Bayo number 2 and Giolito. Pleasant surprise. Yeah, you need all these guys here at the end to be good. We think Crochet will. Bayo, yeah, right? He's still, I'm not like 100% every time he goes out. Like, he can have a bad game. Giolito, yes, he's got the top 3 have to be really good here in the last 52. Like, really good. You have to. Buehler's a 4 or even a 5. You need him to be better. You need innings from the 4 and 5. That's the big thing because it screws your bullpen up. And you hope Dustin May. But then we'll see. We'll see if the guys that maybe they weren't willing to trade or the teams didn't like factor in. It's happened before. Maybe Sandlin and Connolly Early are just with Worcester for a little bit. If Tyler Uberstein pitches tonight, they go with internal options. Doesn't look like Houck's an internal option. He'll be out through September, it looks like, or to September. So the ball, like I said, is in their court. If you didn't make these sexy moves, let's see if internally and the team you have, let's see how it goes. 31 wins. Get to 90. Go 90 and 72. It would be hard for me to accept people complaining about that. Nobody picked this team to win 90 games. 31 wins is the goal. We'll talk all about it Monday. They face Hunter Brown tonight. It's a big series against the Astros. Make sure to comment, subscribe, and like the channel. Emails as well. You can send me an email if you want. I've thrown this out before. It's antonellis.michael@gmail.com. And find me on X at the Radio Mike. Keep your heads up. I get it. I understand. I know people are upset and mad. But let's just try to turn the page. And if you love the game, you love the Red Sox like I do, and so many of you do on the channel, let's enjoy the game at Friday, and let's just enjoy this run down the stretch. Thank you for watching Red Sox Now, presented by FanArch.